Welcome to Digimon. Hello and welcome to another deck profile. If you're liking these videos, please make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and ding that notification bell so you're not missing out on the latest content. Now, I have been on record saying that I would very much like to get to 500 subscribers by the end of the year. I'll be honest, I don't think that's going to happen by now, but every little helps, so if you could press that little subscribe button, we'd appreciate it. Anyways, this is today's profile. We have got birds. We are going through birds, and the reason why we're going through birds is because of the new Scramble cards. Scramble cards, of course, are the absolute rage at the minute. Everyone's talking about them. They're so good, and so we wanted to talk about them too in this little profile. And for me, Scrambles are really exciting in birds. There are other decks that can use them just as well, if not better, but birds does some really interesting tricks when it comes to your scrambles. So the way a scramble works is essentially you are going to play it out, and one of your Digimon of the aforementioned colour of the card, so for Red Scramble, of course, it's going to be red. You're then going to Digivolve, or you may Digivolve one of your Digimon into something with a cost reduced by 3. So ultimately, because you're having to play this Red Scramble out for 2, it essentially means you're only reducing by 1, but that can still make a lot of difference. Then you place it in the battle area. Then essentially what you do is you wait until the right time. The main thing with a scramble is timing. You can't just do it willy-nilly. You need to wait until the right situation and the right board state for you to be able to go for it. Reason being, start of your turn, what you'll do if your opponent has a Digimon, so there's one thing, you have to have that as your trigger. You then do your delay effect. You return one aforementioned colour, so in this case red, Digimon card from your trash to the top of the deck. Then, if you don't have a Digimon, you may play one red Digimon card with 2000 DP or less from your trash without paying the cost. So, your opponent has to have a Digimon out, and you have to have no Digimon out. So essentially, the reason why Scrambles are so good is because they offer a lot of recovery to decks that didn't have that recovery before, whereas now they do. And because of the timing of a Red Scramble as well, the fact that the delay goes off at start of turn, very similar to the timing of saying, say for example, a memory setter tamer, essentially means that you can bypass certain things. So you could set up your start of mains, you could digivolve before the main phase, depending on what you're doing as well, with certain effects. So that's why the scrambles are so good. They also do have a security effect, so you get to play a aforementioned Digimon card with 2000 DP or less from your trash without paying the cost, and then you added the card to your hand so you can then do your setup stuff. But scrambles are very much based on timing. They are very strong. You've got to kind of think of them like, I don't know, let's say if you were what's a good way of putting this? I've got it. So the way you're going to do it is essentially you've got to think of it almost like you're like a sniper. You're like a sniper. You've only got one shot to get it right, and you've got to take it at the right time, else you're going to miss your shot. That's how you've got to think about it. But Scramble, very, very cool, and allows some really cool shenanigans in this deck in particular, as well as some others. But this is the deck I know most of the ones that can really benefit from Scramble, so I wanted to talk about it because I love my birds. Anyways, let's get into the profile. Of course, starting with the eggs, we've got the 4 copies of the Yokomon from BT15. It is the only egg you ever use in this. You could potentially use a 5th egg with the BT11 one, but I think for consistency's sake, it's better to use the BT15 one because it shores up your strategy. As soon as one of your things dies, or if you have another way of triggering on deletion, you then get to return your stuff, so really, really good. Then going into your rookies, we'll go over 2 of them in more detail than the first one. But the first one is going to be 3 copies of the BT11 Biomon, lets you do a search, adds a vaccine, a red vaccine, and a tamer, which is pretty good, and has an on-deletion inheritable to gain a memory. But that's not the exciting rookie. The exciting rookies in this are the BT13 Biomon, which I've put back into the list because of the scrambles. In my previous list, which a link to that will be below, if you want to see that previous list, despite the fact that it's not using the scrambles. The BT13 one uses the scrambles incredibly well, but only if you've got a specific board state. So essentially what you want to have for this combo is you want to have your Biomon, a Christie on board, and so the Biomon's in trash, sorry. The Christie's on board and the Scramble's on board. You then want to use your Scramble, put something to the top of your deck, and then you're going to play out that Biomon. You then play the Biyomon, you bounce Christie to hand, and then warp the Biyomon into a Garudamon. And if you've got the right Garudamon, so Garudamon Ace, that will let you then play out a Tamer, so a Christie, a Sora, whatever you need to get the turn going. You know, I would say you probably want to go Bio into Garuda Ace, bouncing Christie into, and then play out Sora, because Sora will then allow you to do more shenanigans as the turn goes on. The only thing, of course, is that if you don't have the Christie out by the start of main, you lose out on that memory, so just balance it based on what you need, essentially. The Biyomon also has a great inheritable of just on deletion, draw 1 to help you with the consistency. Then the other Biyomon, the BT15 one, is also very exciting, because if you play this one out, you essentially could trigger its start of main, because obviously scrambles work at start of turn, so if you manage to play it out with the scramble, you then get to start of main, do your search, trash a card from your hand, do search for, add 1 red card. The Biyomon's also particularly good because it can add any red card, so it can actually add your scrambles, it can add your trainings, it can add any of the cards in this which are not searchable by any other means. So really, really good. Going into the champions now, we've got 2 copies of Birdramon from BT11. This is just in here as a blocker, but also has a great on deletion inheritable of playing out a red tamer, which we do have ways again of triggering those on deletions outside of being deleted. We've also got the 3 copies of Birdramon from BT15. This one helps you kind of add stuff back into your hand from the trash, which is incredibly important when it comes to triggering your Sora. Also has an inheritable which it shares with the Biyomon, which is when a card is removed from your opponent's security stack, you then gain a memory, so it can help you kind of swing and turn back to yourself, can just help you getting a little bit more kind of resource management. And we've also got the 2 copies of Saberdramon. This is in here mainly for removal, has raid retaliation, which is an incredibly potent combo. You can just raid into what you need and then just blow yourself up and blow them up in the process. And then also has the on deletion return 1 red purple Digimon from your trash to the hand, which again helps you trigger your Sora. Then going into level 5s, and you'll notice of course that in these ratios you actually have more level 5s in birds than you do level 4s, and the reason being is because we've got ways of cheating up into the level 5s, we've got ways of cheating them out in terms of on plays, just works better. We'll go over the least important Garudamon first, which is 2 copies of the BT11 Garuda, which is basically exactly the same as its Birdramon counterpart from BT11, where it's got blocker and it plays out a tamer as it's on deletion. So, you know, the more tamers you've got in this deck on board, the better it is. So, you know, you definitely want to have those available. Then in terms of the other Garudas, they're both played at 4 each. You've got the Garudamon Ace first up, which essentially you can play it out, Digivolve into it, blast into it of course, you play out a tamer, and then when you play out a tamer, it has an all turns trigger to delete something with blocker, which actually can come up in certain matchups. So if you're going up against Magnamon X, for example, and they don't have their protection, you can trigger its armor purge. Granted, it doesn't fully die, but at least you're triggering its armor purge and stopping them from going, you know, swing, remove, unsuspend, swing again. Which especially if they've got something like, you know, the Zubagon punch, you know, you definitely want to stop them from doing that. But definitely really handy in that certain matchup. Then you've also got Garudamon X, which for me is the most important level 5 in the deck. Digivolves on top of a Garudamon, of course, or on top of any of the level 4s. Returns a card from trash, which of course triggers Sora. Obviously, we'll get onto Sora in a minute. If you're wondering what I'm meaning by triggering Sora, is she got some sort of PTSD? She's constantly being triggered by stuff. Who knows? But we'll get into that. But the Garudamon also is the Garudamon X is also really good because as part of that returning something from trash to hand, when you do that, it triggers a secondary part of that effect, where essentially if you've got Garudamon or X antibody underneath your sources, you then blow up something with a DP equal or less to the Garudamon X, which is awesome. Also has a your turn effect of it gives rush to something when something is returned from trash to hand. So really, really good. In fact, actually saying that, the deletion effect actually doesn't trigger technically when you return stuff from trash from hand. It's a secondary part of that effect. So if you return something from trash to hand, and then if you've got Garudamon or Garudamon X, you blow something up. It's the your turn effect that triggers when you're returning from trash to hand, and it just gives rush to something, which is really handy, especially if you've got late game, I'm going to swarm the board with all my birds, I'm going to go full on Alfred Hitchcock, you know, you just kind of go for it. It's really cool. Then also has an on deletion inheritable of trash the top card of your opponent's security, which again, we can trigger that without having to necessarily be deleted. Then let's go into the level 6s. This time I'm going to go into the main ones first, and then I'll go into my tech card choice, which is, so first of all, we've got BT15 Phoenixmon. On play, on deletion, if your opponent has 4 or more security cards, you trash the top of their security, which can be very handy with your timing, because if you manage to cheat out the Phoenixmon. You can play it out, trash a security, and then use your on deletion from Greedamon X to then do a trash as well. Or if they've got 3 or less, you delete their lowest DP Digimon, which is really good. When Digivolving effect as well, you play out a red Digimon with 5,000 DP or less, or you play out one of your tamers. Again, as many tamers as you've got on the board is really, really good. Then, of course, the main boss monster for this deck, Phoenixmon X. And Phoenixmon X is a wacky card. I fell in love with it the moment I saw it. You know, I mean, I've been playing Birds for a while. Technically speaking, I've been playing Birds since BT11, back when it was Birds Beasts with the Marsmon stuff, and then they're kind of separate decks, which is really interesting. But Phoenixmon X is incredible. It's just a bonkers card. When Digivolving Blitz, so it can swing past memory turn. Your turn, essentially, if you've got Phoenixmon or an X antibody underneath it, all of your on deletions become end of attacks. Every single one, including its own. And its own on deletion effect is to play out something, a bird, of course, with 11,000 DP or less. And then you blow up something with DP equal to what you played. So you can, you know, delete something up to 11,000 DP or less, whilst then also triggering the rest of your undeletions, which, just to go over some of those, you could be drawing, you'd be gaining memory, you could be playing out tamers, you could be returning stuff from trash, you could be trashing the opponent's security. It's bonkers. It's really good. So you can do some really nice combos with it where you can, you know, as I mentioned, you can go in the Phoenixmon X, you can play out your Phoenixmon. If they've got 4 or more security, the on play for the Phoenixmon then goes off to trash the top of their security, and then you on deletion trash the top of their security with the Greedamon X inheritable. It's just really good. And then on top of that, if you're playing out the tamers, you can play out your Sora, on deletion, return stuff from trash, trigger the Sora, play more birds. It's really good. Then the last level 6 we've got, I used to play Valkyremon Ace, but there's 2 issues with the Valkyremon Ace. One is it's a one-of, and it's only searchable off of Biomon and offense training. You know, and 2, it's not a vaccine. So we literally, I say that's 2 problems. It's not very searchable. It's not very searchable. I could have made that much more concise. It's not very searchable. You know, I think I potentially would put it back in, but I do really like the tech card I put in instead, which is Ancient Kazemon, who is a vaccine, is red of course, and is an ancient birdkin, so we're trashable, we're searchable, we're all of that sort of stuff. And the Ancient Kazemon is really cool because it is exactly 11,000 DP. Bandai were like, oh, I wonder if any Birds players might want to play with that. Well, let's get 11,000 DP and we'll see. Because then it's playable off the Phoenixmon X effect. And what Ancient Kazemon will do is it goes out on play, suspends everything with DP less than equal or less to itself, and then all of your opponent's Digimon can't unsuspend, which is really nice. You know, so if you've not managed to kill them, then you can just go into the Ancient Kazemon and stun the board. You know, because even if they've got, you know, because it literally stops them from unsuspending for the entire turn. So you know they can't do anything unless you've got something in the back. Then they're kind of screwed. So it's just really, really good. It does have an all turns effect as well, which essentially when it would leave the battle area, you can play a level 4 or lower Digimon with the hybrid trait, which obviously we're not playing any hybrids, but also avian, bird, or fairy in one of its traits from its Digivolution cards. So if you do manage to climb up into it, then you do have a slight protection effect and a recovery effect with that. But I tend to find that never comes up. You're only ever using this for the on play, but it is really nice. Like I say, it's an interesting tech option, but it's interchangeable with Valkyremon, I would say. So just gauge that on what you're feeling. Then we've also got 1 level 7 in this deck, which is 1 copy of Gallimon Crimson mode, and I think 1 copy is enough. You know, because of the fact that our main plays are all to do with Phoenixmon X, so we don't necessarily need the Crimson mode Ace, but it's nice to have it in case we need to go into it. Now, it's not very searchable. Only the Biomon and offense training can search it, but that's better than nothing, you know. And for a level 7, that is going to, when Digivolving and has blast timing, of course, delete 15,000 DP worth of stuff. That's pretty cool. It has also got a great when attacking effect of for every 10 cards of both players trash 1 card from the top of your opponent's security stack. Gallimon Crimson mode does Gallimon things. And to be fair, because Birds is a purple deck in disguise, we can often get quite a lot of stuff in our trash, which means, you know, even if they don't have a lot of their stuff in their trash, we can still get that trashing effect off sometimes. Like I say, he's not the focused. He's kind of just a backup. You know, he's a defensive backup. Sometimes, honestly, one of the best things you can do with it is just play him for 8. do is when Digivolving as an on-play and blow up the board. Sometimes that's just the best way. Right, now, let's go on to Sora and the other tamers as well. So Sora, of course, we've talked about her throughout this deck profile. If you don't know what she does, she is a memory setter, which is awesome. But the main thing she does is she has an all-turns effect of when something with the returns from... it's a red Digimon card. It could be any red Digimon card. You get to returns from your trash to the hand. You return her to hand, so you bounce Sora to your own hand. You then play out one 13,000 DP or less Digimon with the Avian Bird, Beast, or Sovereign, other than Sea Animal in one of its traits. So you could also put Sovereign, so you could also put like Xiaomon in this deck, which is pretty cool. From your hand without paying the cost of each security that your opponent has left, you remove 2,000 from that effect's playable effect. So early game, she's only going to be playing out your rookies, but the later game you go, you're going to be playing out more and more, to the point where if they've got only one security left, you can play out 11,000 DP, so you can play out your Phoenix ones, you can play out your Ancient Kazemon. Once they've got no security, you can even play out the Phoenix 1X. I don't think you would, because it doesn't have any like on plays, but that's still pretty cool. Then to go along with the rest of the tamers, we've got 2 copies of Akiho. Akiho is great because you get another searcher, so she'll add any kind of red vaccine card after revealing top 4. And then when you play a red Digimon with Avian Bird Beast in its traits, you give that rush. So it's another rush provider. In my previous build, again, that is linked below, I actually took out the Christie combo completely, just because of one of the things that's kind of bad with that combo is if you're going up against Imperial Dramon specifically, they can ruin your day. So the Akiho was quite nice because we gave us more search and gave us more rush. So I didn't want to take her out because she does supplement the deck's overall strategy, and I do, so far from my testing, I do really like this build. If I'm being honest, it might just be because I'm more comfortable with my previous build. I'm still finding my previous build a little bit more like cohesive. But I think that's just because of the fact scrambles are still fairly new. I'm still kind of getting used to them, despite the fact I've done quite a bit of testing with them. And it's just a comfort thing, I think. But then we go into Christie. Christie start of main. If you've got a bird in play, you gain a memories, which is pretty nice. And then on play, one of your Digimon gains on deletion. You may play a Biomon from your hand with all trash without paying the cost up to the end of your opponent's turn. So she lets you get another on deletion, which actually can trigger with the Phoenix 1X. If you manage to put that onto your Phoenix 1X, it's a lingering on deletion, so you can then use the Phoenix 1X to essentially play out 2 bodies with its own on deletion and the on deletion from Christie. And of course, you need the Christie on board to do the combo with the BT13 Biomon. So she's necessarily in this deck to facilitate that combo. I've only got 2 copies of her in, and it was 2 copies of the Akiho, just in case I didn't mention that. But it will be on screen because of the way that we've decided to do this deck profile. But yeah, Christie's really good. Then we go into the options. Obviously, we've already talked about the scrambles, but there's 2 copies of those. I won't talk about them again just because we had the little intro at the beginning of the video, but 2 scrambles are in there. I have also still got 2 offense training, and I played around with having no offense training, and I played around with having like 4 scrambles at one point. But again, because the aforementioned timing issues, I actually think having 2 scrambles is enough. And then having 2 offense trainings to help you with your searching and ultimately with your cost reduction, because the thing with the offense training is versus Scramble, they both obviously have a Digivolution reduction mechanic. However, Scrambles happens when you play it, whereas offenses happens as a delay. So in terms of cost reduction, I think offense training is better because you can use it for a search, then wait and use your cost reduction at the right time. Whereas Scrambles, essentially it mitigates its own cost reduction because you pay it for 1, you pay it for 2, then your cost reduced by 3, which sounds more because offense training only reduces by 2. But ultimately, because you've had to play the Scramble that turn, you're actually only reducing for 1. If that makes sense. But so I do find offense training is still a really good one to have for that consistency and for that later kind of plays. Plus, because of the timing issues with Scramble, I think only having 2 copies and not making it your full-on focus with 4 of them is the better way to go. Have it as a supplement rather than your focus. Then the other options we've got 1 copy of Wings of Love. This one lets you play out a Tamer, and then if you've got a Sora in play, you return something from trash to hand, which of course triggers Sora because she's constantly triggering, guys. Constantly. She's a very troubled girl. So the Wings of Love is really nice for that. It's also very cheap. at 2 costs, so you can play out all of your tamers for essentially just 2 cost. And sometimes you can use it to just not play anything at all, just to leave your opponent on 1. That has genuinely come up for me. We've also got 1 copy of Crimson Blaze. I did actually have a copy of Trident Gaia in my old build. I took it out though, because we've got other ways of deleting and stuff like that. But Crimson Blaze, I think, is still a really good removal tool. It's obviously got wider deletion against those decks that are going to kind of crap out a lot of tiny Digimon, and obviously stops them from playing things by effects, but not you, which is pretty good. So say for example, if we put like Gotsumon in this as a floodgate, that would essentially stop our own plays. Whereas if we're putting in Crimson Blaze, that only stops their plays whilst removing some of their stuff. So definitely I think that works better as a one-off. Then we've also got 2 copies of Protoform. In my old build, I did play 1 copy of BT9X Antibody as well. But to fit the scrambles and everything in, I took that out. And I'm back down to just the 2 copies of Protoform. Obviously Protoform, if you can get more copies of it, that's great. If you were smart enough to get a playset of it when it first came out, congratulations. I was not. But I do find 2 copies is enough, just because we can do the Phoenix ones. You know, because we can return the Phoenix ones from trash and the Garudas from trash, then you don't necessarily need the Protoform all the time. It's good to have it there as a backup to help you, you know, make going into your Phoenix ones cheaper. You know, because it literally you may digivolve, you don't have to. You may digivolve. You then go into it. Put this underneath if you did digivolve and it's reduced to by 1, and it also gives you a slight recovery by allowing you to take something from your stack, add it to hand, and then you put the Protoform into recovery just to give you that. But that's the deck build, guys. I really hope you guys enjoyed the format that we've done for this one. I was having a chat with Alex the other day, and I think we're going to start doing our deck profiles a little bit more in this more spaced out fashion again. Not always necessarily physically, as is the case with this. This, of course, was a was with visuals on screen still, mainly because I don't have the scrambles yet. I should and I need to, but you know, I don't have them yet. Christmas is coming. That's all I'm saying. I hope you guys enjoyed this format where everything's a little bit more spaced out instead of it all just being on screen at once. It's obviously takes a little bit more time to edit it this way, but I think visually it works better. And do you know what? Having noticed some of our analytics on the channel, I personally want to try and put more effort into the videos again. I feel like that might help us with certain things, because viewership has not been good. Maybe it's because we've got the content we're putting out. Maybe it's because of not always feeling like it's got the most effort behind it. I don't know, but it's just those things that you get paranoid about when you're doing a channel. But like I say, I hope you guys enjoyed that. Let me know how the build goes for you guys if you try it out. Let me know what kind of tech cards you try out, and enjoy your scrambled eggs. But until next time, guys. Keep it digital.